MEPs or members of parliament, of the European Parliament, down from 751 before Brexit. We are located in 3 places, actually: Brussels, Luxembourg, and Strasbourg. So Brussels is where a lot of the activity takes place for committees and political groups. Luxembourg is where part of the administration is located, like, for example, the IT department, the DG for IT of the European Parliament, and Strasbourg is where the plenaries take place. The European Parliament is a co-legislator for the EU, in the sense that the European Commission, which is kind of like the government, imagine, is proposing legislation, has the initiative to propose legislation, and then the European Parliament, together with the European Council, are co-legislators in the sense that they amend and approve or reject this legislation. Think of it a bit like an upper and lower house, or Parliament and Senate. The European Council, of course, is composed of ministers and prime ministers. Our meetings take place in different formats. So MEPs will meet sometimes in committee or delegation format. So, for example, the Committee on Industry, Committee on Agriculture, or the Delegation for Relations with the United States or with China. Then they meet also in formats which are called political groups. Imagine it like political parties. So the center left, the center right, etc. And finally, we have meetings of the plenary, where all the MEPs are involved and where the final vote takes place on a given proposed legislation. The EU has 24 official languages, and therefore any text would potentially be translated into many, most, or all of these languages, and meetings are interpreted again into some, many, or all of these 24 languages, depending on which MEPs from which countries are taking place. The plenary is, for example, interpreted into all the 24 official EU languages, and you can watch that on the website of the European Parliament in any language of your choice. Next slide, please. Thank you. So getting to Pericles now, as already explained by Nasos, Pericles is a kind of custom enterprise resource planning solution built for the European Parliament and used in the European Parliament and in a couple of other EU institutions. It is a kind of a family of IT applications, approximately 15 of them, and it is used to manage, first of all, the rooms, the meeting and conference rooms of the European Parliament and other open spaces, as well as any meetings, conferences, or events taking place in those locations. And also, it is used to manage the services provided to those meetings and conferences and events. The biggest one of these is the interpretation, but also many of the technical services, the catering, the accreditation requests, usher services, etc. Okay, we have more than 4,000 users, approximately 4,500, I think, of which, try to imagine, I think about 500 of them are using it daily, all day long. It's the tool they use to do their main job, and the rest are more occasional users for consultation. Now, okay, sorry about this. I will exit from my phone application. So, Agile, okay, the subject of this week, the subject of this conference or workshop is Agile. Pericles has been, as a project or as a family of projects, as a program, has been managed in an Agile Scrum way for now 5 or 6 years. And it's going very well, and both we and our customers are quite happy with this way of managing the system, because it allows us, I mean, we'll get to why in a second, but let's say quickly that the 4 values of Agile that I'm sure all of you will already know is: we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and very important, responding to change over following a plan. That is, while we value the items on the left on the right, we value the items on the left more. Next slide, please. Yes, so some examples of how we are trying to be agile is, for example, reducing the lead time, the time it takes between when someone has an idea about what we could do to make their life easier or to allow them to implement a new business process until we're able to provide some kind of a solution in their hands that they can use in their daily lives. So the way we're trying to reduce that is by, first of all, reducing the time between the idea submission and the project approval. This is kind of the governance of the IT projects throughout the European Parliament, making that shorter than it was before. And also reducing the time between project initiation and delivery of a minimum viable product to our users. So once the project has been approved, between the time we initiate it until we are actually delivering something, we're trying to make that also as fast as possible, but not too fast, of course, or not too short. We also try to avoid what we call analysis paralysis. So try to avoid that we analyze things to the very smallest minute detail. And then until we have done that, the business have changed their mind about what they want to achieve. And then we have to analyze everything all over again, and we never actually get to deliver something. Next slide, please. Okay, the definition of a successful project. This is also something that is quite cultural. It's a change of culture that needs to take place in order to achieve that. The more traditional, I would say, mindset, the more traditional definition of a successful project is something that was delivered on time, on budget, on scope, etc., on quality, etc., etc. While this remains, of course, a goal, it is no longer our main definition of what is successful. So in addition, I would say, to these parameters, we saying that it's very important that we achieve high customer satisfaction, that the users are happy to receive and to use this tool, and that it does make their life easier. And we focus on objectives and key results. So basically, we try to remember, why did we do this project? It was not a goal in itself. It's a means to an end. And this end is customer satisfaction, objectives, and key results. Next slide, please. We try to follow a release early, release often mentality. So I'm copying here text from people smarter than me. We try to satisfy the customer with early and continuous delivery of valuable working software. We release often, approximately every 6 weeks, every month and a half. This means we have 8 to 10 new versions of the tool per year. And we work in 3-week sprints, so in 3-week intervals of development work. So each release is then the result of 2 sprints by consequence. We try to define an MVP, so a minimum viable product. This is the release early part. So I think that's maximum, I would say, 1/3 of the whole scope should be the MVP. It depends on the project size, of course, but we try to not wait until the very end in order to deliver something, but we find the minimum set of features that someone can realistically use usefully, meaningfully, and try to deliver that first, and then collect feedback on that, and then build on top of that. Something very important, we strive for simplicity. So maximizing the amount of work not done. It's very important to be lazy in order to do that, and I can proudly claim I'm very lazy. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So this is the end of the presentation as a way to kind of give context.
Okay.
And now, yeah.
Now we have organized with the speakers, guys, a set of questions. And before I continue with the questions, let me share with you that we can have a questions and answer session at the end. Our speaker would like to see you when you pose a question. So if you would like to say a question, you can raise your hand digitally through the platform, and then you can open your microphone and your camera, and you can put the question to the speakers yourselves at the end of the presentation. So let me start discussing and asking you the first question, which is okay. From what I understand, Dimitrios, you implement all these in Pericles, not by yourselves, but by using collaborators. So can you please explain what is how the collaboration is being structured and how you contribute and how do you distribute roles and all this context?
Dimitri, you're muted.
Dimitri, you're muted. Yeah.
Apologies, here I am. Okay, how do we collaborate? So first of all, we do collaborate. That is not a given. Sometimes this is the part about collaboration over negotiation. Not everyone sees it this way, and I'm happy to say that we do, and we focus on working together in order to provide something valuable to our users rather than fight amongst us or blame each other when something goes wrong. The collaboration takes place as follows, I would say, and probably Alessandro is better placed to explain this, but INTRASOFT offers the developers, the development team, the experts, I would say, who do the development and the maintenance of the tool, and DG iTech, which Alessandro represents, is the one who manages the budget and the contracts and the methods and the servers and all of that. And I represent kind of, or we represent DigiLink, the customers. So we are what in Agile we would call product owners. So we are in charge of defining scope, clarifying things, prioritizing things before they are developed. And then after they are done, we are also responsible for the acceptance. So checking that everything works as it should and managing the change. So explaining to the users how they should do their work with this new feature and managing this change process. Alessandro, I don't know if you want to add.
Yeah, hello to everybody. Well, indeed, we have more or less all the Agile defined roles, business sponsor, product owner, business analyst, project manager, team leaders of the development team, and analysts, tester, and so on. So I think we can cover also because the team is it's quite big. We talk about 20 consultants in total, split into teams. And I think we can cover all the main roles provided by Agile.
So great. You shared some of the goals that you have before. My question is, is much more simpler. I guess before you were following the waterfall approach. So what turned you into Agile? What were, the signs that turned you into Agile, and what were the outcomes that you expected to have by following Agile?
Okay, let me unmute myself this time without you having to ask me for this. So this is the continuous improvement part of the process. What turned us to Agile? First of all, yeah, this turn happened shortly before I arrived in this role. But what I know is that, how should I say? Well, all the benefits that I mentioned earlier in the presentation did not exist so much. So we switched in order to try to achieve them or to improve on that aspect. So how long it took between an idea, between a request, and how quickly we could actually start doing something, or even more, before we could deliver something. And also change was problematic. Change was not welcomed or encouraged, but it was resisted. So if in all of this time that it took us to decide and agree that we were going to do something and started doing it, the business, of course, had changed, and the customer would explain, yeah, we still want what we asked for, but we want it slightly differently. And this would, of course, create problems for us and would lead to a lot of meetings, negotiations, haggling, and all of that. So this agility allows us to act more quickly, deliver more quickly. And even then, if once we deliver, let's say, a minimum viable product, or even before that, the customer understands their needs better and their constraints, of course, we need to adjust because we're doing it for them, not for us. We're doing this for them. So if they're not happy, we are not happy.
Okay.
I have my experience.
Go on, Alessandro.
On the other side, I have a different background because I was working for almost 15 years in a little institution of the Commission. And since it was quite little, I had a direct way to communicate to the management. If I had to ask something to the director, I could knock on the door. So in this case, we have a more flexible way of working. If something is needed, it can go directly to the IT team. So we were, let's say, agile oriented. We were developing in a similar way to agile, but I didn't know agile in detail, the terminology, the rituals. So when I arrived to the parliament 6 months ago, I found all this quite natural. Although in the past I followed some trainings on project management in the old waterfall style, I think that it will be more difficult to work in that way. Also because I'm used for a long time to work before in a similar agile way and now in a fully agile way.
So let's get juicy. Let's take the values and see how these are actually being implemented. So the first value says individuals and interactions over processes and tools, but the European Parliament is a governmental, let's say, organization. So how do you manage to do that?
Well, of course, since the Parliament is big, you have to follow the procedures. You have some bounds. You have some tools to follow. However, although as I told before, I was used to work in a different way. I must say that although the Parliament is more structured, it's bigger, a lot of importance is given to the people. Of course, if you know persons well, you rely more, you have more trust, you rely more on the persons, you interact better between the parties. So the way we manage our projects, I must say that the European Parliament puts a lot of weight on the persons and their collaboration and importance. Of course, bounds are important. However, the Agile Manifesto doesn't neglect the processes and tools. It puts more importance. It underlines the persons and their interactions. Then, in general, I have to say that the management usually has a different point of view, a specific point of view regarding the tools and the processes. For example, they are usually more directed towards the time and the cost. If you think that the Parliament uses the citizens' money, that's important for them to be strict on the budget. So it has to be proved that the budget is correctly used. That's why usually they are more oriented to the restriction of costs and delivery on time. Of course, both parts can be useful, but also have side effects. For example, this way the management could not see the difference between an outcome and the output. The output can be the budget that has not been spent, the time has not been delayed, but the customer satisfaction, this is an outcome, and this could pass at the second level. This is a risk.
If I may add something, what we try to do here is to enable to provide a free space for the team members and to keep away the paperwork from the team. And this is the major duty and the role of Alessandro and me. The two of us are the project managers of Pericles. Alessandro on the European Parliament side, and me from the consortium side, from INTRASOFT side. And as such, we do the paperwork. We follow. We take care to manage this split, which Alessandro was just mentioning. That on the one hand, we have the regulations, the boundaries from the European Parliament, which are given, because I think it's not a clandestine fact that European institution is for sure bureaucratic institution. And on the other hand, in order to enable the team to work in an agile way, where it's very important that they have the feeling that they can do their own decisions, that they can act in a flexible way, and that they are not just have to follow the task list, etc., and without thinking. Yeah, what I want to say is that we, as a project manager, we are kind of umbrella over the team. So beyond the umbrella, the team can work in an agile manner, because they get the free space to be creative, and they have the necessary freedom also to make certain decisions on their own. It's not that it is a very strict command line from the top to the bottom. It's more in the way that I just described.
So from what I understand, there is documentation, but the focus is on the software. So how do you achieve that?
Yeah, exactly. We are in the very lucky position that we have a product owner and stakeholders fully supporting this approach, and as such, we can fully follow this principle in full extent. So the Dimitrios, I guess you can just complete that. It's clearly a clearly given role in the moment that we fully concentrate on the quality of the software. This is the most important thing we follow up. And then for sure, we have to provide a certain amount of documentation, but this is, let's say, the technical part of the crucial technical parts are for sure described. And on the other hand, as the business is doing the end user support, they are for sure also providing a kind of basic handbooks in order to give them an introduction to the software. But as we also try to follow the approach to keep the software, not only the processes, but also the software as simple and self-explanatory as possible, we try to avoid the need to have documentation, so that the customer, the user, comes into the software and knows how to use it. And yeah, these are the main roles and rules we try to follow, and it is possible, luckily.
Okay, if I may build on that, I think that yeah, working software over comprehensive documentation. Obviously, we have documentation, and obviously also there's many different types of documentation: project documentation, user documentation, technical documentation, etc. And while that is important, I think that in the end, working software is what our customers really need. That's what they ask for. They didn't ask for documentation. So again, the documentation is a means to an end. If I can talk about the project documentation, for example, I would say something that builds on what I spoke about earlier, not too much analysis up front. So of course, you need to do some analysis to see if what you want to do is feasible, and to understand the scope of to understand the problem, first of all, that you're trying to solve, understand the scope of the solution, and start building something. We don't want to go into too much detail, because not only are we losing time, but I think that it's also harder for our user to imagine the solution to such detail in their head based on a written text in order to give us validation or feedback or anything other, and having mock-ups and prototypes and eventually working software does a much better job in, first of all, putting a solution in their hands and leading to some sort of validation. This can work, this solves my problem, or it doesn't work, it doesn't solve my problem. What else could we say about that?
Still, though, I understand that, you know, being a difficult, you know, you have a contract, you need, you're in the public sector domain, and contracts, you know, are very important. And okay, you both ways to communicate and collaborate, but you know, how can you shift this value from the contract negotiation part to creating the working customer collaborations needed?
Yeah. May I?
Yes, of course, Alessandro. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thanks. No, I think that there are two main things. First, we need a strong support by the management, because one of the main things is to have the support by the management. Otherwise, it will be a fight, and it will be a fight over the time continuously. So this is very important. Another thing, I think it's the trust among the parties, because if you trust the others, you don't need so much to define the bounds, to define the services, how they have to be provided. This is also, of course, at a higher level. So I think that these are the most important things. Some barriers, of course, are necessary. Otherwise, we risk to go from too strict to too loose. So on one side, define too many restrictions. On the other side, go around without having a clear objective. So I think that the management needs a clear direction on how to measure the results of the progress. And indeed, this is usually done through targets like the budget and so on. It could be measured in a different way. However, I think that we are fully supported by our management, because this is not always the case. One example is that the fact that they are at a high level redefining the processes, transforming from the ideas to the real project. It was mentioned by Dimitrios in one slide. They are changing the processes in order to follow more the agile way for the preparation of the ideas and the transformation from the ideas into the projects. And this requires a very high level collaboration and trust at all services, especially at the high level, I think.
So I guess an iterative approach is there. Can you describe this approach? How do you follow it? What are the steps?
This will be because they're preparing it. It will be started soon. This will be an iterative approach, like all the approaches we have in Agile. That is having the outcome after a number of series of iterative approaches.
Okay, so can you share with us some valuable lessons that you have learned throughout this process, all these years that you're working together?
Yes, so I can tell about this. Maybe then Dimitrios can also contribute. I'm quite young in the role, so everything seems going well, luckily. I see some risks here and there. For example, the fact that there's a high level of collaboration, and most of the people, the stakeholders, are involved and need to be sometimes interoperating and doing some other things. This is motivating. This is very good because it raises also the level of the persons. On the other side, if somebody is not providing a certain level, this could become an issue also for the others who have to cover, to support. I also think that the technical skills are very important, but there are certain roles that are more important than others, that are crucial. For example, the business analyst is talking to the different parties, talking to the users, talking to the development team. And this is a very crucial role, because the business analyst needs to understand both parties, and not every time this is the case. So I see some risks in working in agile mode. However, the results can be seen. For example, recently, and Dimitrios can speak more about this. We had to change the projects in order to provide an extra feature to the system regarding the remote connection and the remote interpreting. And the best result was that during the board meeting, the user representatives, the directors, were congratulating everybody for the prompt answer and agile way we introduced the changes into the system in order to provide a quick answer to the new needs. Maybe Dimitrios can explain more about this kind of approach, following a request of change instead of following the plans.
Yeah, thank you, Alessandro. First of all, I'm looking also at the chat. We are reading your questions, and we'll get to them either during our answers or right after them. Responding to change, indeed, we had, due to COVID, to change our business quite significantly, and this required a change in the way that the tool works. So add some more features and remove some constraints that existed before in order to help users avoid mistakes. Those constraints should no longer be there, because something that before was not okay, now it is okay, actually. And the way that this happened was that, yeah, I mean, very simply, the business came, they said, we want to do this. We tried to describe briefly in 10 pages or less, okay, so this is what you want to achieve. These are the 10 or 15 changes to the tool that we will need to make. That will be phase one, that will be phase two. Does this sound okay? Yes, we don't aim for a formal validation with signatures or anything like that, because of course, all of this is new. In the end, of course, it went well, but if someone in goodwill did not foresee a problem with this document, we are not going to punish them and say, well, you didn't ask for this in time, so now you cannot have it. And we proceeded to implement the changes in a period of 2-3 months. We are almost complete now. So phase one has been delivered already in January, and now we're finishing phase two. And indeed, everyone was happy both with the quality of the result and with the speed of delivery, because before that, they were expecting that they will have to wait for the IT to adjust in order to enable this new business process. We were actually quite fast, and now the changes can be implemented quickly. Lessons learned, and I saw a question as well about what is the main obstacle to switch from following a plan to delivering value and being agile. It's all about changing the culture and about building trust. So in the beginning, they're taking a bet. They have to trust you that this different way, which at first sounds less safe, less secure, will actually work better than the other one. We've been doing this for years now, and therefore we don't have, or we have less this problem because of experience. They've seen it work, they've seen us deliver value repeatedly and reproducibly. Maybe something that they asked a long time ago they didn't get because they got something else that they asked afterwards, but which they said it's more important. So you want this now, it doesn't matter that before you wanted something else. We will build this rather than that because that's what you need. It also requires trust in the other way, in the way that in order to deliver an MVP and get people to use it, rather than waiting for the full set of features, if they ask for 20 features and you're giving them the first 5 and say, switch to this one and then we'll build the other 15 later. If they don't trust you, they might, and I've seen it happen a while ago, they are afraid that if they accept these 5 features, you will not build the other 15. That you will tell them, okay, well, now you've switched. So actually, we won't build the rest anymore. So they need to trust that you will continue delivering the rest afterwards so that they actually switch. This, on the other hand, ensures also that you don't have features that they don't need. I think that we've all heard the fact that in every software tool, in every big major software tool, people are using 30% of the features and almost no one is using the other 70%. And at least according to some, the reason for this is because people, if you are too rigid, if you're too waterfall, people are afraid that if they don't ask for something from the beginning, they won't get it. So if they have an idea about a feature and they're not sure if they really need it or not, they might think, well, we better put it in there because otherwise, if we discover we need it, they won't give it to us if we don't ask for it from the beginning. So you have this kind of explosion of scope. They ask for it just in case they will need it. Whereas if you build the culture of trust and of agility where you're saying, look, if you're not sure that you need it, don't put it there. You can always ask for it later once you've got the MVP and once you understand your needs better. And this, of course, needs trust. But on the other hand, it leads to savings because some things that maybe they asked for, later they realize, well, we don't really need it. You don't have to build that for us. That's fine. So trust is, I think, the most important thing.
Great. So what do you think, guys? Should we go on to the questions from the audience and move on? Do you want to? I will post. I will give the questions that I just received. Or if Devanath, maybe you would like to put the question yourself to our speakers.
Well, I see something about where was it?
Yes.
About disciplined agile.
Dave asked first about how do you match with PM Square and as a methodology in the institution. So that's the first question, and then we'll have also a question about disciplined agile.
Well, I can say something about disciplined agile. Well, we don't follow this, let's say, close to the book, but when you see some topics which are aspects which are mentioned in disciplined agile, like people first, for sure this is one of the things we take care of a lot, because for instance, what we do is that we take care that the people are that they are involved in the whole development process, which is also about so that we have, because we have to complete a development process from the initiation about the architecture, the management, the scoping, etc., till delivery to production. We are following the whole process, and we take care that that all the team members, that they are following the whole process from the beginning to the end. And we also try to involve everybody into all the different topics which have to be done, or the different tasks which have to be done in the the development life cycle, which is not analyzing things, developing, testing, managing also the infrastructure which we are using, the tools, etc. For sure, you have always specialists in the team, or people who tend more to database or whatever, different layers or technical aspects of the solution. but we always try to motivate the people to learn also other aspects of the work which has to be done in the whole development life cycle. And I think this is very important, and because it gives the chance to people not only to work on one topic for years, but also to learn. And we also expect this from the people, that they are open for learning all the time. This is for example one thing we care about discipline, Agile, and other aspects as well. But I think we don't have the time to talk about all the details now.
Yeah, but I will have to go back into the question about the PM square, and we have a couple of questions about this. And one is, okay, whether there is a strategy or a roadmap to go into PM square and probably, you know, match with Agile, and also a question about what was the main hurdle to shift from budget over time KPI to a delivery-based customer satisfaction KPI?
Yeah, about this, about the second question about switching to value delivery, I think I already answered that just a moment ago. About PM squared, I think that well, first of all these methodologies, they're a little bit similar. Of course, they share many of the features. The Parliament's methodology is a kind of a fork or a small modification of PM squared. But I think that my main reaction to this is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So rather than talking about PM squared, I would rather talk about individuals and interactions.
So one final question has to do about the scope creep. So as you said before, Dimitrios, one of the, you know, instead of putting everything in the beginning, then, you know, by building trust, you have this possibility of slowly and gradually putting the scope in place. So
yeah.
Is it working?
Yeah. So how do you avoid scope creep? I think that you cannot completely avoid it. You try to reduce it as much as possible. The ways to do that is, first of all, to empower the product owner to say no. So I have, because of the trust that we have accumulated over the years, the possibility to say, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not worth the effort. But in order to do that, you have to, first of all, understand what is the problem, what are we trying to solve, and strive for simplicity. So when a user comes to you and says, I need this, so you are directly in the solution space, say, okay, hold on a second. Let's stay for a moment in the problem space. What is the problem you're trying to solve? This thing. So you ask, you know, this thing of asking why 5 times, and then you get to the simplest possible solution that solves their problem. And that is a way to avoid scope creep as much as possible. Another way is to say, okay, we'll do that in phase 2. I'm half joking, of course, but it is part of, well, okay, let's focus on getting the MVP out the door. What you're asking for is not MVP. You can live without it. I'm not saying we're not going to do it, but I take note. And once we have it, from all of the other things that all of you people have asked for, let's prioritize them and see what is the most important ones, what are the most urgent ones that we will deliver first. Of course, at some point, it can easily happen that the scope is much more than what you originally envisaged, and you stop. But you have the certainty, if you did your job well, that you have delivered the most important and most urgent things. So yes, you have not delivered the rest, but what you have delivered was the best thing you could deliver within the budget and time and all the constraints that we have.
Yeah, great. I have a last question, which is really interesting here, and it has to do with whether the extra effort needed by the contractor side is being recognized by the customer. Because here we always have this need of probable last-minute changes, and you have to consolidate all this. So, is it?
Well, frankly, scope creep. In my understanding, well, I think I think it is the question on how you define it and in which context you see it, because scope creep in a waterfall project is for sure a risk. But in agility, I see it rather the key aspect, because agility means that you are agile, that you react on changes of the scope, and a scope change can be reasonable. It's a scope change doesn't come out of the air, you know. It comes up and you have to react on it. And agility is exactly the approach to deal with these kind of changes. So I don't see it as a risk. It's a challenge for sure, but with agility we are more flexible and we can react on it. And as Dimitrios already said, for sure it depends on the amount of change. But as Creep is saying, it's coming slowly. And usually slow changes can be handled very easily when you have a well-working agile environment. So I don't see it as a risk. I see it as an asset.
if I may add my 2 cents here. Now, you mentioned contractor here, so let me try briefly, just in a couple of sentences, and give the perspective of the contractor. In our case here, INTRASOFT, right? So for a firm like INTRASOFT, agility needs to be a business decision, right? Needs to sit on the organizational level, much like all strategic moves of a firm, right? So it is actually, if we try to put it in a nutshell, it is actually the market, the industry that is shifting toward agility, right? So suppliers, service and solution providers like INTRASOFT, we need to spearhead this, right? We need to work with our clients and help them make the jump. So in that context, we need to go first. Now, previously you talked about lessons learned, right? So from what I've learned working with our EP counterparts here, we had this lovely collaboration, and you know, it keeps on going, and hopefully it will keep on going. I will try to concentrate on the enablement of both signatories of a public institution contract, right? Because for me, this is the most important takeaway. Now, we need to work with and around contracts so as to benefit the project, so as to deliver qualitative results in a sustainable manner, right? So as Dimitris said previously, and most of the guys here, I mean, the key tenet of Agile is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. This is the only thing that ensures trust, right? This is the only way that we can get led to successful, to meaningful and great results. So from the contractor point of view, everything has to do with building and changing mindsets that will eventually reflect on the contracts we sign, because those then actually reflect the mindset, the new culture, and the trust that is being built between the two parties, right? And just to briefly answer to what somebody asked before about DA. So when it comes to frameworks, I mean, we all the time try to assess each and every one project to see what it makes sense to pursue in terms of agility. So in that sense, we are DA driven. So we try to do the requisite stuff. We try to do as much as it makes sense. We don't try to apply frameworks per se. And basically, I think, to the best of my knowledge, this is what DA stands for, right? It's a toolkit that says, listen, these are the tools that you can utilize. So based on your context, pick up those that will make you successful, and not try to apply frameworks as such. So this is what we try to do. This is what we have been doing. And on our side, and on the INTRASOFT side, as collaborators, we try to also enable our customers to think that way, you know, move them away from strictly cut out frameworks. Alessandro, you want to say something?
Yeah, indeed. Please don't forget that here we have a sort of chain in which we have the users, the DG link. There's the DG iTech, that is the provision of the software, and there is the contractor. Okay, so in this case, we are more or less in the same boat. That is, we are exactly receiving a service, but we're also providing a service on the other side. So we have to collaborate together, otherwise it won't work.
Exactly. Thank you, Alessandro. And basically, this is why I underlined the value of customer collaboration, because if we do not collaborate in this complex environment, then it will all crumble apart. It will all fall apart.
So Lampros, if I can summarize what we were discussing, during the last hour, the key word is trust. Yep. And let me thank you, gentlemen, for our conversation and your presentation today. Thank you very, very much. It was an honor and a pleasure having you here. And before I end the session, let me just briefly share my screen again. And okay.
And this is why we value interactions and individuals over processes and tools. Tools can prove you wrong at times.
Yes,
It means that you have now have to talk to tell.
By the way, while we are waiting, Nasos, I will copy paste all the 4 PDUs from the first 2 days.
I was trying to show the PDUs. Yeah, that's
exactly.
Here.
So in the chat, you can find the 4 PDUs from the 4 sessions, 2 yesterday and 2 today, in case you have missed any.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, my PowerPoint. Okay, now my PowerPoint is working. Sorry, guys.
If it's not, I can share as well.
Yeah, I think it works. Yeah, let me share it again. I think now it works. You can see it all.
Yes,
okay.
It is up.
Okay, yep. It is up. So let me remind you of the special offer of Alvision, about the 10% discount for trainings that are offered by Alvision. Let me thank again INTRASOFT for being our sponsor for this Agile Week, and Alvision as well. And those are our long-standing sponsors and supporters in our PMI Luxembourg chapter, PwC, the Summit of the Congress of the Luxembourg, Deloitte, in Europe, EY. There is a sponsorship framework. I'm not going to stay much. If you wish to sponsor our chapter, you can find all information in our website. Finally, let me call you all, if you are interested in what you see and you would like to participate, join our chapter, be in my place or being speaker or whatever you have in mind. We are here. PMI chapter of Luxembourg is willing to accept everybody. We hope you join us and become a member. This is the PDU claim code for today. Thank you very much for being here. I'm Nasos Karagioriadis, and I was really glad to host this session for you today.
And see you all tomorrow, hopefully.
Yes, for 2 very interesting sessions as well. Have a great rest of the day, everybody.
Thank
see
you.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye. Take care. See you this week.